NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play. What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. So the Nets have actually played a little bit better of late. They won 3 of their last 7 games, which for the Nets is very good. They had a good win against the Celtics the other night. Before that, the Heat, and before that, the Bulls, which are 3 quality teams. And, it's just really the same thing with the Nets team. They play hard, they hang in there, they might have a lead that maybe reaches 10 points, and then they fall apart at the end of the game because they can't execute. But lately, they're doing a little bit better execution-wise, but there is some bad news that was released the other day, and that was that Jarrett Jack, who had hurt his knee in the game against the Celtics, is going to be out for the year with a torn ACL. Now, this is really bad news for the Nets. First of all, ACL injuries, well, they suck. I know firsthand. If you recall, a couple episodes ago, maybe even farther, I had said I was taking a hiatus, and I took a little hiatus because I was having surgery myself to repair my ACL because I had torn my ACL in my men's basketball league about 3 months ago. I'm still in the recovery process of that current ACL tear, but the funny thing is, before that, about 5 years ago, I had blew out my right knee and tore my MCL, ACL, and meniscus playing basketball, and required 3 surgeries to fully repair that knee. And that was about 5 years ago. And then, of course, after several years of physical therapy and getting back in, I don't want to say shape because I'm not in shape, but being able to play basketball again, I tear my left one. So I know a thing or two about ACL injuries, and like I said, they suck. There's nothing good about them. No one will ever have a smile on their face when they hear the word ACL unless it's followed by is not torn. It's as simple as that. And I feel bad for Jarrett Jack because this is a bad injury, that one of the worst of his career. He's never had a severe injury like this, and it comes at a really inconvenient time. But it's really inconvenient for the Nets. Obviously, it's inconvenient for him, but for the Nets, it's pretty bad because Jarrett Jack, he's a key player to this Nets team. He's the primary ball handler. He's really their best playmaker, believe it or not. I know Joe Johnson's pretty good too, but Jarrett Jack's a little bit more of an offensive threat. And, he leads the team in assists, and he's basically the leader of the Nets. He really is. He's the vocal leader and everything out there. And now he'll be out for the year. And, I think he'll be okay, though, in the future. I mean, if I could get over 2 ACL tears, pretty sure Jarrett Jack can handle 1. Though I'm not fully over the other one yet. But I'm getting there. Whether I play basketball again or not, I don't even know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I will because I'm not a professional. Despite what I think up here, I'm not a professional. So I don't know why I would even continue. But beside the point, Jarrett Jack out, Nets in trouble. So we need to try to figure out right now, what are the Nets going to do here? Their starting point guard is out. Well, let's look at the Nets roster right now and think of who could be the point guard. Well, obviously Shane Lark. He's the logical choice. He's the guy who stepped in when he got hurt, had a really bad game that game. And actually, if it wasn't for Joe Johnson and Brook Lopez, they probably would have lost that game against the Celtics. Joe Johnson finally had a really good game. I think he had 20 points, 9 of 21 shooting. Lopez had 30 points, like 12 or 13 rebounds. Those guys carried them. That gets me nervous about having Shane Larkin as the point guard. He's just too inconsistent. I mean, he's had a very good year this year. There's moments where he looks really good, but he's not a good defensive player. He turns the ball over too much. I think he's a little too fast for the game. He's one of those players that kind of gets a little out of control. Can't really control the tempo of a game. I mean, he's played well as the backup, but I don't know if he's going to be very good as a starter. I'm very skeptic about that. But I'll hope, because right now he's the starting point guard. And then Donald Sloan is going to be the backup point guard, and he's going to see significant minutes. And, well, look, there's a reason why Donald Sloan is a third-string point guard. He's not the greatest guy in the world. He has his moments, but I don't really like the Nets' chances Well, I never like the Nets' chances, but I really don't like the Nets' chances with that as your two with those two guys as your point guards. But what other choices do the Nets really have? I mean, they could have Joe Johnson play more of a point forward position, which he has done in the past, and be more of the primary playmaker and ball handler, and just have Shane Larkin or Sloan play off the ball. That's a possibility, and I think that's actually something you might see the Nets do a bit. Obviously, they're going to let Larkin prove himself, because who knows? Maybe he'll prove himself. He's definitely a skilled player. He just needs an opportunity, and maybe he'll shock everyone. But I think more or less a good option would be to have Joe Johnson be the primary ball handler and play a point forward position and be the playmaker that he's still pretty good at doing. And I think, however, that could be bad for Joe Johnson because he's kind of shown that the more responsibility he has on this Nets team, the more he's struggling. The less responsibility, he seems to do better. So, who knows? But that's one solution the Nets have. Another solution is that the Nets could try using Markel Brown as a point guard. Now, this is something I saw Lionel Hollins do earlier in the year, but they kind of stopped it and went back to Jarrett Jack because Jarrett Jack was better and so on and so forth. But Markel Brown, has some skill set to be a point guard. Now, he wasn't a point guard in college. He played the shooting guard because he played with Marcus Smart, and Marcus Smart was the primary point guard. But he has the skill set. He's a decent ball handler, decent playmaker, or at least I think he could be. And, he's athletic and quick enough that he could really stay with point guards. So I think Markel Brown could be trying to maybe become a point guard. I would give it a shot. I don't think the Nets have anything else to lose. I think that's an option they should look at. Maybe they try using Markel Brown as a point guard and develop him. Maybe he shocks you. Maybe he becomes a good playmaker, because he's kind of that tweener guard, that not quite as the size and shooting ability that you want out of your two guard, but he doesn't quite have the ball handling and playmaking and passing ability that you want out of your point guard. He's in between. But he's got a lot of other skill sets that could make him a very, very useful player, and I figure why not? Why not give him a chance? I think if it doesn't work with Shane Larkin, maybe the Nets go that route, because who knows? Maybe he kind of figures it out and becomes a very explosive point guard that become a decent playmaker and shocks the Nets. I mean, I'm just spitballing, to be honest. I'm trying to think of things that the Nets could do with this situation. Because then the only other option other than, using Joe Johnson as a point forward and trying Markel Brown as a point guard is trade for somebody. And I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot of trades I can see the Nets successfully doing that will not involve Jarrett Jack, which, why would a team trade for Jarrett Jack now when he's not going to play this year? Like, that's kind of silly. But there's certain situations that teams might do it for salary purposes. So now you're handcuffing what the Nets can do to trade for a point guard. Obviously, there's Joe Johnson who can always be traded, but his contract's huge. Bojan Bogdanovic is somebody, maybe Karasev's name's been thrown out there. But outside of those three guys, there's not a lot of options of assets the Nets have. I don't think the Nets are going to want to trade Rondae Hollis-Jefferson or Chris McCullough. So really, you're kind of handcuffed. And who the heck's going to take Bargnani or Thomas Robinson? The truth of the matter is you're kind of handcuffing what they can do. But that still doesn't mean the Nets can't try to make a trade. For example, they could still try to go after, Brandon Jennings. I made that suggestion in my last video about the 5 trades that I like to see the Nets do. Originally, I said Jarrett Jack and Bojan Bogdanovic were Brandon Jennings. I'll still stick to my guns on that. Look, the Pistons, they have Reggie Jackson. They don't need another point guard. But they could use some shooting to stretch the floor. So why not say, hey, listen, we'll give you Bojan Bogdanovic. He's the focal point of the main talent you're going to get. But we throw Jarrett Jack in as well because we need the contracts to balance out. And you give us Brandon Jennings. And you can either sign Jack next year because he has a $500,000 buyout. So you can either buy him out for $500,000 or you can bring him back next year. And either way, you're going to get Bojan Bogdanovic and we'll take off this point guard that, you have no use for. That's a possibility. I'd spitball that if I was Billy King. Maybe you try the same idea with Ty Lawson with the Rockets. Say, okay, listen, we'll give you Bogdanovic and we'll give you Jack for the contracts for Ty Lawson. Once again, main talent is Bogdanovic. make the contract work with Jack. We get Lawson. You can either keep him, Jack, for next year, or you can buy him out at the end of next season and save money. So those are options that I think they could still do. So they could still involve Jack as a trade piece for his salary and contract purpose. But overall, it kind of handcuffs the Nets. Obviously, there's a lot of outside the box things you can do involving Joe Johnson or doing 3-team trades and so on and so forth. Things could work. And the truth is, I don't know if Billy King is going to do it. Billy King has made so many bad moves. I think he's almost scared to make a move. Matter of fact, I think the only move he has made that hasn't been bad was the Garnett for Thaddeus Young trade last year. That being said, he should still look into trying to find another point guard. The good news, if there's any good news, I wouldn't say good news, I'll just say the silver lining, I guess, of this situation is it's early enough in the year where they have an opportunity to test out, Markel Brown, Shane Larkin, Donald Sloan, and Joe Johnson as the main point guards and see how well do they fit. Do they work? Can they become solid enough point guards that the Nets don't need to go somewhere else? There's enough time in which if it doesn't work out, then they know, okay, we got to go out there and get a point guard. That being said, it's not like the Nets are really going anywhere this year, so if they continue to lose whatever, I think this is a good opportunity to try out some new players and try out some new things and try almost a point guard by committee situation. But lucky enough, it is early enough before the trade deadline that if Billy King does need to try to pull something off to try to get a point guard like a Brandon Jennings or a Ty Lawson or players that I like Trey Burke. I like Trey Burke. I think he's a player the Nets could go after straight up. Maybe you throw in Bogdanovich and maybe the 2017 Celtics pick that you can swap with for Trey Burke, because Trey Burke right now, he's the sixth man, and the Jazz have made it kind of clear that they like Dante Exum a little bit more, even though he's hurt right now. Maybe the Nets try that. Try to get the idea of, hey, give us Burke. Because I think Trey Burke, by the way, is a starting point guard and a possible all-star point guard. I don't know if he will be an all-star point guard, but I think if he was a starter, he'd be a very good point guard in the league because I think he's got the skill set. I try that. Why not? Roll the dice. Give the Jazz a call and see what they do. Maybe they try to get Darren Collison from the Kings. He's having a really good year, but they have Rondo now. So maybe you could try to structure a deal and say, look, we'll take Collison and we'll give you Bogdanovich and Karasev. That works. Package that up as well. So there's things the Nets can still do. There's players that they could still get to try to fix this now gaping hole that is the starting point guard position for the Nets. But as of now, nothing. I guarantee you they won't be done anything other than, hey, let's give Shane Larkin a try. Let's give Donald Sloan a try. And let's see what happens. And let's see if maybe we go with Joe Johnson, Markel Brown. That's all you can do. That being said, the Nets still need to try to win some games. I don't want the Nets to end up with a bottom 3 record this year. I don't. But they're right there, actually. There's a lot of 12-win teams, and the Nets have 10 wins. So my goal with the Nets is to at least climb up those the standings. Right now, like I said, they're 10-23. If they can get on a little roll, which I don't know if is possible, but hey, look, if they continue to win 3 out of every 7 games, I'd take that with this Nets team. That being said, let's look at the next few games for the Nets. They have the Celtics Monday night, and then they got the Raptors, followed by the Magic, and then the Pistons. All pretty decent teams. All teams that are better than them, obviously, and all teams that, especially the Celtics, Raptors, and Magic, are all teams that could cause some problem for the Nets. They did just beat the Celtics. Pistons game, they beat the Pistons earlier this year. I think they can win that game. I'm going to say the Nets are going to go 1 out of the next 4 games, go 1-3, but they could go 2-2, but they've got to get at least 1 win, I think. They better. But who knows? Because they don't have a point guard right now. Unbelievable, but whatever. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Billy King tries to do anything down the road, and we'll wish Jarrett Jack a speedy recovery. And I can tell you, Jarrett, you'll be fine. Just persevere, And make sure you have a lot of activities to do right after surgery, because you'll find yourself being in bed, watching Netflix, watching TV, playing video games for like the first 3 weeks until you start rehabbing. And then the fun begins. But until then, that's what's going to happen. But anyway, keep your eyes open for the next NetsBoy. Oh, jeez. And until then, this is NetsBoy, signing off. When the Nets just can't